According to the most recent government figures, men make up just 16% of the primary school workforce, and 1 in 10 English primaries have no men on their teaching staff at all. What does this staggering imbalance mean for the nation's children? And what is it like for those men working in such a female-dominated workplace? When men do go into primary school teaching, they're most likely to go to the upper end of the school. Richard Gill is the Year 5 and 6 teacher at Boseland Green Primary School in Bradley Stoke, near Bristol.
Yellow. It's not the yellow that it is in the paint. OK, if I look at that, you can see some yellow on it, but it's kind of a shade of yellow. So if I put a bit of yellow in there, what could I mix with yellow to maybe make it a different shade? It's just yellow at the moment. When I was training, I was the only male on my course in the year. Some people would say that's good, some people would say that's quite hard work. Luckily, I managed to get on with women and work with them. Obviously, they take a different aspect on life, and kind of conversations would have to be slightly different. I couldn't talk about football, and I couldn't talk about necessarily what I'd been up to on the weekend, and so the conversations had to sort of deviate to slightly more woman-orientated. I always remember the one thing that I had my hair cut one day, and I went in and they were like, "Whoa, you've had your hair cut?" And I was like, "Yes, I have had my hair cut."
So what colours have you mixed to make that?
A little bit of blue because the yellow was a bit too light, and then I'm putting in some more yellow.
Going through university, a lot of my friends that were in teaching did choose the secondary option. I'm not sure whether that's kind of a safeguard, and they kind of feel more confident specialising in one subject. Out of my friends, they just think maybe looking after children all day, teaching children's not for them. It's quite a difficult role and something that they would not enjoy. Just the fact that they would have that many children around, and the fact that they maybe wouldn't be able to cope with all the children pulling on their trousers or tugging them, calling their name all at once.
Joe Pritchard!
Oh, I think men are put off becoming teachers via a wide variety of things. I think the first one is this notion of it being a female job, and it takes quite a tough young man to want to go into a predominantly female job. They get ribbed by parents, by peers and so on about it not being a proper job for a man. It's low status in the sense of it's associated with work with young children, and that traditionally is stereotypically female.
Clipston Brook Primary School in Leighton Buzzard had not had a permanent male teacher on the staff for over 10 years. This term that has changed as Peter Rowe began teaching the Year 3 and 4 class.
When I first started, it's almost like a parade almost. It's like you're being sort of, you know, here's the man here, he's standing in front of you. They are real. And one of the children said things like, do you shout? And I think I said, I'd probably shout if you'd done something you shouldn't be doing. And he went, oh, OK. You know, and I think sometimes the children didn't necessarily realise that you'd be doing exactly the same thing as the female teachers would be doing, just because you were a man you think would be totally different.
How can we find a number in the 9 times table if it's bigger number than 100?
I know. Let's start from 1 again, but remember it's in the hundreds.
Right, OK.
We haven't had a male teacher in the school for about 13, 14 years, so we haven't really been used to hearing a man's voice around the school, but he's been a really positive influence, and the boys love having him here.
We were really excited. Yeah, it was exciting because we've never had a man teacher before. Mr. Rose got a loud voice, but when like Mrs. Worth, we couldn't really hear her. And a man's more active and the lady's less active. And when he shouts, he's like sort of like he doesn't mean it. My friend Amy, she was like, I would have been in Mr. Rose's class, which was like in Mrs. Davies. And everybody wanted to be in the Mr. Rose, but we just couldn't have all of them.
So go and find a space in the area. Thank you.
It does make a difference to the school because obviously he's got different views of how to do things, and just the male perspective is totally different to the females.
Let's do a little bit less than talking this time, OK?
I'm quite happy. I think most children, they have their mothers at home with them most of the time rather than their dads. So I think it's quite good for them to have a male presence at school. So I'm more than happy. And I think it shakes up the school a little bit as well.
Okay, here we go. All right, zip. Ooh! Give yourself a round of applause. Well done. Oh, even better. Right, we'll have a go on level 2. Now,
I mean, you know you're going to be a minority when you come in. I think that sometimes puts some males off. I actually felt quite lonely at first because there's no one really to talk to necessarily about men issues rather than necessarily female issues.
Zip.
The only let-off I've had is talking to the caretaker, and the caretaker talks football with me. So I sort of let off steam and talk about men things rather than talking about ladies things.
At the University of Hertfordshire, the TDA is funding a project focusing on the initial teacher training of men and looking into the issues they can face, both on courses and in the profession.
The teaching of the British nation has been in the hands of women. I mean, teaching has been a profession that has been female-dominated for many, many years. We have successfully at the University of Hertfordshire managed to increase through some very, very targeted work with prospective applicants. We have increased our the number of men on our courses, but that doesn't reflect the national picture.
I think certainly from my experience of thinking about my own practice, thinking about colleagues, males need to be told, definitely, this is what you've got to do. If you want to improve on this, then do it like this, or this is the way I would suggest. Females seem to be better at inferring what's being said within a conversation.
Men, being in the minority in teacher education and in schools, need to be trained differently. We need to customise the way that we recruit them, the way that we select them, and the way that we train them. And it has to, we're thinking very carefully here about what the best ways are to customise and personalise that training.
What was it about the fact that being a male in a predominantly female environment, was that a disadvantage, was it an advantage, and how did I cope with that?
One of the things that we've done is to develop a men-only open evening for those people who might be interested in coming into teaching at some point in their career. And what we've been aware of over the years is that men coming in onto primary BEd courses on the traditional 3-year teaching degree or a PGC 1-year course are depressingly more likely to fail, or they pass the course and then they don't apply for a job.
You've made the decision to want to become a primary school teacher. There has to be a reason for that. You must have some belief in your head that you've got something to offer the primary school.
I'm thinking about teaching generally, but I'm kind of in two minds whether to go to the primary school or the secondary school. I've been on work experience in a secondary school, and I just wondered how it differed and what alternatives I had to offer. My one kind of concern at the minute is with primary school teaching, whether I kind of be someone for them to look up to as opposed to a female teacher.
I've worked in a factory for 23 years, got quite a lot of life skills but no real qualifications, and I think it must be quite fulfilling teaching children at that age. I've got 2 daughters, and I think when they're learning at that age, it's just such a nice age to be with them when they're learning new things.
Westfield Junior School is in the town of St Ives in Cambridgeshire. They are one of the link schools working with the University of Hertfordshire looking at the training of male teachers. Year 5 and 6 teacher Ben Austin was asked to contribute to the project as he has over 20 years teaching experience.
Here we go. So you're ready to make notes, listening to what I'm saying. I'll go fairly slowly as we haven't practiced this much before. I wanted to do teaching from quite an early age, which I think is quite unusual for a male, but I like doing a variety of things. I didn't want to subject specialise, and so I like to do the PE, I like to do science, I like to do English and maths, and it was that variety which I think convinced me to do primary, really.
Using AM and PM would be 11:55, AM or PM?
Wrongly, in my view. Some people see a man in school as being responsible for being a disciplinarian, which I don't think should be the case. There's some, in this school and many schools, there are very good female disciplinarians, but I think some people, especially certain parents and certain even parts of the school community, say, well, let him deal with the discipline, let him sort something out.
Because she said that you blew a raspberry at her. There's a misconception that often the men get put with the worst children. They think because they're bigger and they're louder and they can control them better, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. If it's on your finger, I'm going to have it. OK?
Men sometimes, well, very often have louder voices or perhaps deeper voices than their female colleagues. And men certainly can't rely on shouting or being very angry or feigning being very angry in order to discipline and to mould the behaviour of children. That shouting or raising a voice can be very inappropriate when delivered by a man.
OK, look, how are we doing? Henderson shelters are made of steel. I feel there are a lot of young children who haven't got good male role models in their lives, an awful lot of split families where, for obvious reasons, at times the male is absent, the woman is left to bring up the child on her own, and for children to have a positive role model in school is very important, and without that, I think the children find it very difficult to adjust. And with only having one man in the school, sometimes the children find it, again, a strange phenomenon to have.
Well, there's a lot of talk about role models, and it's the media, certainly, that's pushing that one, but along with politicians, I think every major leader has said boys need role models. What they really, really need are good teachers. There is no evidence that suggests boys do better if taught by men and girls do better if taught by women. If you think boys were achieving far better than girls right up to the 1970s, being taught by predominantly women, why should it make any difference now?
There are opinions that say actually women do a very good job and teach very successfully, therefore why do we need men to do that job if women are doing it well? I think that men do have a particular role, however, to work alongside and to model certain behaviours to do with learning, to do with reading, to do with writing and attitudes to career aspirations that are different from women, from their female colleagues. And I think it's very important for boys to see that education is a place where it's acceptable to be.
I think really what we need are recruitment drives, earlier perhaps in children's education that's happening at the moment. They get careers advice, I know, at secondary school at different levels, and I think that's where teaching needs to be looked at as a possible vocation for these young people in their lives, pre-sixth form almost, or certainly at sixth form college, say, look, how about going into teaching? It really was hard, but this is an excellent effort. This is Harry's, called Waking Up. My alarm clock goes off like the room is singing. But I think what could happen, or needs to happen if we want to get more men in teaching, is that those recruitment drives focus on men and give them the options and give them the reasons why it can be a rewarding job, which it can be.